couldn't drive home because he was drunk. So, I started the car and headed to my in-laws' house. However, what awaited me was a malicious grin on my mother-in-law's face. She suddenly drenched me in beer and hurled insults at me, leaving me in shock. But in the next moment, rage welled up inside me. Wiping the beer off my face, I managed to say, "I'll be leaving now." And with that, I left my parents' house behind. Just before I left, I saw the puzzled faces of some relatives in the corner of my eye, but I had no capacity to care. My name is Anna. I'm 30 years old. Since graduating from college, I've been working at a wholesale dealer a bit away from my hometown. Work is going fairly well, and I don't have any particular hardships in life. But there was one thing I was struggling with. And that was how shy I was around people. Since my school days, this made it hard for me to make friends. Even when people talked to me, I often responded coldly, yet I couldn't bring myself to join in on conversations. I just got too nervous talking to people. Despite this, I can't thank those who became friends with me. When I first became aware of my shyness, it didn't bother me much. But one day, as I was walking down the hallway at school, I suddenly heard people speaking ill of me. They said I was cold, had a bad attitude, and was full of myself. There was more, but I couldn't take it in. Realizing that this was how people saw me, my legs gave out. But I knew I couldn't let them find me like this. Somehow, I forced myself to flee from there. Since then, I've been troubled by my lack of communication skills. Worried that I might make others uncomfortable and earn their disdain. Eventually, this inability to communicate became complex for me. And it didn't change even after I became an adult. Moving away from my hometown for work meant I was separated from friends I had spent so much time with. We kept in touch, but the lack of face-to-face meetings and spending time alone made me feel lonely. Being shy yet hating loneliness was an unpleasant reality for me. I wondered, what kind of selfish person am I, as my concerns only grew. However, upon getting a job, I thought this might be a chance to change myself. But reality was not so kind. Old habits die hard, and I remain unable to speak up at work. Fortunately, my coworkers were kind and made efforts to talk to me. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that their kindness was why I could do my job well. But I knew I couldn't rely on this situation forever. I resolved to break out of my current state and become more proactive. Thanks to that, by the time 2 years had passed since I started my job, I had become significantly less shy. I still felt nervous, but I could join conversations and communicate better. Yet, I wasn't satisfied. Looking back, it's clear I've grown since my student days. But I couldn't feel content because my complex was too significant. Then one day, I met Ryan, who would become my husband. My life and perspectives changed drastically after meeting him. Ryan was helping out at one of our clients' stores. A business run by his parents. By chance, I dealt with him when the usual contact was away, which became a significant turning point in our relationship. Ryan was gentle and seemed happy to talk even to someone he had barely met, like me. He responded with a smile whenever I initiated a conversation. I had met people like him before. But with Ryan, I felt something different. I wanted to talk more with him. To know more about him. Even though we had barely spoken, I felt drawn to him. By some coincidence, Ryan seemed to feel the same way. At first, we would just chat briefly when he visited the office, but eventually, we exchanged contacts and started meeting outside of work. As we spent more time together, our relationship deepened, moving from friends to lovers. And 2 years after we started dating, Ryan proposed, and we became husband and wife. His parents seemed kind, which was reassuring. "I'll definitely make you happy." I'll never forget the words Ryan said when he proposed. I was excited for our happy life to begin. Dreaming about our future together, my heart was filled with excitement. But later, I would come to know the true nature of Ryan and his parents, facing the harsh realities of life once again. After marrying Ryan, my life seemed richer. Coming home tired from work, the loving that made me happy, and he always had comforting words for me. It might seem like an everyday scene for a married couple, but for me, it was a source of happiness. Ryan helped out his parents' business while working at a company. Despite being busier than I was, he never showed his fatigue. "How's the store doing lately?" "Good, it seems to be going well." "When should I come help out next?" "Let's see." Feeling guilty for always having Ryan help out at his parents' store, I started volunteering more actively. Initially, I was told, "You don't have to worry about it," but gradually, they began to rely on me more. I took on tasks like arranging products, managing inventory, and even doing stock taking when the season allowed. It was clear from our everyday conversations that Ryan and his parents cherished the store. I was happy to feel that I was contributing. However, a year after we got married, things began to change dramatically. The family store started to struggle financially. It had been doing well until a large supermarket opened nearby, drawing away our customers. We tried increasing our advertising efforts and expanding our product range, but nothing seemed to work. "What should we do if this continues?" "Yeah, really." Every time I went to help, Ryan's parents discussed their concerns with desperate voices, making my heart ache. "It's looking bad, isn't it?" Ryan seemed different, too. It was understandable. The store he had helped with his whole life was facing a crisis. I alone couldn't make a difference for the store. Yet, I was determined to do whatever I could to help with the store's management. But all my efforts were in vain, and the store eventually had to close. I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more I could have done, filled with regret. I couldn't find the right words to comfort Ryan's or my parents, struggling with the closure. This event led to a significant breakdown in our marriage. Ryan's parents, who were once kind, started treating me coldly. "It's your fault the store closed." "What?" After the store closed, I was helping clean up when Ryan's parents seemed in a bad mood from the moment we met, making me more nervous than usual. Suddenly, my mother-in-law sighed heavily and blurted out. I couldn't comprehend what I was being accused of and failed to respond. "Well..." My father-in-law followed suit, hurling hurtful words at me. "Ever since you got married, there's been one bad thing after another. What are you going to do about it, you bringer of misfortune?" "Wait, a bringer of misfortune?" Could Ryan's parents believe I had brought some bad luck to their family? It was such a baseless accusation. Having been treated kindly before, their harsh words now made my heart ache. "Why all of a sudden?" "Do you want to say it's not true? The large supermarket opened near the store's business declined, and it closed down, all happening within this past year, right after you joined our family." "That's not fair." "Unfair? No way. If you hadn't married into this family, none of this would have happened. Just like your father said, a bringer of misfortune." I was stunned by such irrational thinking. What about Ryan? What did he think? I turned to speak to him, who was working behind me. Just as he spoke, "Mom and Dad are right. Why did I even marry you? If I had married someone else, the store wouldn't have closed." "Even Ryan?" I was shocked. To have Ryan and his parents turn against me like this. It's the truth, isn't it? You are a destroyer of what's dear to us. You managed to live unbothered, without considering our feelings. Ryan's expression was colder than I'd ever seen. His parents continued to berate me. And I wanted to run away then and there. But escaping would only lead to more harsh words, and I didn't have the strength to retort. I stood there, unable to do anything. From then on, the way Ryan and his parents treated me changed significantly. Returning from work, Ryan no longer greeted me with a smile. I no longer heard his voice, thanking me for the day or sharing his experiences joyfully. "Hey, dinner. Make it quick." "Sorry, I'll get it ready." "Stop dawdling. That's why you are how you are." Ryan gave me a cold look and words before turning his attention back to the TV he was watching. I knew that getting back to how we were before would be impossible. Even if we could, I can't imagine how many years it would take. I started preparing dinner, taking in visits to our house increased significantly. Either because they had nothing else to do after the store closed or just wanted to harass me. Honestly, their frequent visits were troubling. All they did when they came over was to complain to me. The more I look at you, the more unimpressive you seem. It's embarrassing that someone like you is my daughter-in-law. Ryan, why did you choose her? I wonder why I can't remember anymore. Hearing their conversation made me feel more saddened than angry. If he truly couldn't remember why he chose me, it meant he had lost interest in me. Not remembering is pretty harsh, isn't it? You don't really think it's that bad, do you? You caught me. Their bad-mouthing continued, blatantly making sure I could hear. If that's how it's going to be, should we get a divorce? I interjected, feeling humiliated. But the response I got was something I hadn't anticipated. Divorce? No way we're allowing that. Right, Mom? Yes. Divorce looks bad, doesn't it? What if Ryan ends up in a worse situation because of it? You can't take responsibility for that. I was cornered by their stern faces, unable to say anything. Looking at Ryan, it seemed he agreed with his parents. Not denying anything they said. Despite mentioning it, I didn't have the courage to initiate a divorce myself. In the end, all I could do was live each day feeling unsettled. Half a year into this way of life, Ryan's father got sick and was hospitalized. According to Ryan and his parents, it was apparently my fault that his father got sick, along with everything else, including the store's closure. They just couldn't wait to blame me for anything. You really are a curse. To think my father would end up in the hospital. He had been healthy all his life until you came into our family, and now everything's a mess. How are you going to take responsibility? It was indeed sad and worrying that his father had gotten sick. But being blamed for it was troubling. I'm at a loss here with you saying things like that. We're the ones who are truly at a loss. Ugh, this is just terrible. His mother dramatically held her head, sighing deeply. Don't cause any more trouble for Mom and Dad. Am I the one to blame? Obviously. Ryan glared at me just like his mother. I wondered why Ryan decided to marry me. Being constantly blamed made me question my existence. Hey, could you pay for Dad's hospital bills? The store's gone, and we're out of money. Of course. We both work, after all. I'm really sorry about this, it's her fault. It's fine, Ryan. You don't have to apologize. Without letting me have a say, it was decided that we would pay for his father's hospital bills from our joint finances. I understood that his parents were going through a tough time and had no issue with paying the bills. However, the fact that they didn't even consider discussing it with me left me feeling frustrated. It wasn't that I wanted to interfere, but it was a financial matter, after all. What? That dissatisfied look. Is it about the hospital bills? Haven't we told you it's your fault Dad is in the hospital? Besides, wouldn't you normally offer to pay? You're just as thoughtless as your mother says. It's not like that. Don't make excuses. Yelled at by his mother, I kept quiet. I knew that no matter how much I tried to explain, it would all be taken as excuses. Yes. I responded and didn't speak again after that. Even with his father's hospitalization, Ryan and his parents' attitude towards me didn't change. In fact, it seemed to get worse. Ryan began to bring up financial matters more often. It's your fault my dad's in the hospital. It's a good thing I earn more. Do you even realize how fortunate you are to live comfortably because of me? Honestly, our salaries hadn't changed. If anything, I earned slightly more. Yet, Ryan insisted he was the higher earner and became increasingly harsh towards me. I had shown him my pay slips and tried to explain the truth. But he never believed me. When I visited his father in the hospital, I was greeted with, "You curse. Who do you think caused all this?" His mother continued to visit our home, dishing out nothing but sarcastic comments. I was at my breaking point. I wanted to leave everything behind and escape. It was during this time that an unexpected opportunity arose. It was about 3 months after my father-in-law had been hospitalized. That day, Ryan had gone to his parents' house since the morning, leaving me alone for a brief respite. However, around noon, Ryan called me. "Come over here now," he said, his voice clearly indicating he was quite drunk. I replied lightly and drove to his parents' house. Upon ringing the bell, Ryan's mother, who seemed in high spirits, greeted me. "Oh, you finally made it." She appeared to have been drinking a lot, as the smell of alcohol was strong. Inside, as I expected, in addition to a drunk Ryan, there were relatives gathered that we usually only see during weddings and funerals. "We wanted to drink, so we called a bunch over." "Anna, you're here. Get me some water, quick." I was still trying to grasp the situation when I was met with Ryan's mother's malicious grin, holding a glass in her hand. "The leech and spoiler of our family," she sneered, before dousing me with the beer she was holding. My mind went blank. The smell of beer drenching me made me realize what had just happened. What a relief! "Mom, what are you doing?" In the next moment, anger surged within me. Wiping the beer off my face, I managed to say one thing. "I'm leaving now." With that, I left Ryan's parents' house. Right before I left, I saw the puzzled faces of the relatives, but I had no room to care for them. I went home and began to prepare for my return to my parents' house. Every time I saw the clothes stained with beer that I had discarded, the scene at Ryan's parents' house replayed in my mind. Since I didn't have many belongings, packing was done quickly. I could have headed straight to my parents' house, but I wanted to talk to Ryan one last time. So, I waited for his return. An hour after I left Ryan's parents' house, Ryan came home, panting. "Hey! What's this about suddenly leaving?" "Suddenly leaving? Don't you understand I left because I was drenched in beer? That was just Mom messing around. There's no need to be so upset about it." "Messing around? You think this can just be brushed off?" A single apology from him could have calmed me down a bit. But here, I was being blamed for leaving suddenly again. No need to hold back anymore. "Exactly." "What do you mean, exactly?" "That's it, I want a divorce. I've reached my limit." "Huh. Don't just say things like that suddenly. We should talk more about this." "There's no point in talking anymore. You're just going to blame me with your mother, aren't you? Here, the divorce papers. I've already filled out my part, just sign your part and submit it." Saying this, I pulled out the divorce papers I had kept in my bag and handed them to Ryan. "So, you had the divorce papers prepared all along?" "Because I'm serious. Preparing divorce papers is a normal thing, right? So, please take care of the rest." "Hey!" I pressed the divorce papers into Ryan's hand and left the house. I could hear him making a fuss behind me, but I decided to ignore it completely. After that, I headed to my parents' house. "Why didn't you talk to us?" The first time I explained the situation, I could tell my mother was angry even over the phone. Her kindness and my own inability to consult my parents sooner made me feel pathetic, and I started to cry. After driving for a few hours, I arrived at my parents' house. Ringing the doorbell, my worried parents greeted me. Seeing their faces, I collapsed right there, all strength leaving my body. Parents truly are incredible. I felt that deeply. The next day, my heart had settled down a bit. I explained the situation to my work and took some time off. "I made plenty, so feel free to have seconds." "Yeah. Thank you." I hadn't had much appetite the day I returned home and couldn't join my family at the dinner table. Because of that, the breakfast my mother made tastes especially good. "You're eating well." "I haven't been eating much." "I see. Well, there are no enemies here, so do as you please." "Yeah. Thank you." My father was right. Here, there are no enemies. I won't have to endure any more snide remarks or unpleasant attitudes. It's sad that such ordinary things make me so happy, but it's probably because of what I've been through until now. Just as I was feeling relieved, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," my father said and headed to the entrance. But the moment the front door opened, I heard my father's shouting voice. "Why are you here?" My father rarely raises his voice. Could it be? "Is Anna here? Let me see her." Sure enough, it was Ryan who had come visiting. "Anna isn't here. Leave now." "But Anna's car is here, isn't it? And her shoes too. There's no use trying to deceive me." Ryan was being assertive even towards my father. Neither was willing to back down, and the argument only grew louder. I knew it wouldn't end unless I stepped out. I stood up and walked towards the entrance. "Ryan, what are you doing here, coming all this way?" "Anna, please, let's talk." "All right? Hey, keep it down. Anna's troubled because of you, so please leave." "Dad, thank you. It's okay." "Ryan, what do you want to talk about?" After thanking my father, I took his place in front of Ryan. "I want you to reconsider the divorce. It's troubling being told this so one-sidedly." "One-sided? You're making it sound like it's my fault. Have you forgotten it's initially your family's fault?" "Our fault?" Ryan seemed about to grab me, but perhaps realizing he was crossing a line, he lowered his hand gently. "Yes. All these unfounded accusations you make. Can't you see it from my perspective for once? And the divorce papers? There's no way I'd submit those. I threw them away." "What are you doing? I told you to leave them out." I had considered he might throw them away. But facing reality still infuriated me. "And you? Do you think you can live without me? Relying on your parents forever isn't going to work. It's like you were living off my earnings." His self-centered remarks made me doubt my ears. "What are you talking about? I've shown you my paycheck multiple times, haven't I? You chose not to believe it, claiming it was forged. Don't worry about me. I just want a divorce. That's all I'm asking for. Don't worry. I can't just stand by saying that. I'm your husband. Don't start playing the husband card now. Besides, I'm just a curse and leech, right? Might as well get divorced. I'll send the papers again, so please leave for today. If you come back, I'll call the police, okay?" "The police?" He hadn't expected the word police to come up. Ryan left the house dumbfounded. Hopefully never to return. But knowing Ryan, he might take an action I can't even predict, maybe even conspiring with his mother. I sighed heavily, foreseeing an unsettled period ahead. 2 weeks later, Ryan and I were still not divorced. Although I had sent the divorce papers, they ended up being torn up each time. Considering involving a lawyer, Ryan messaged me asking to wait a bit longer. I could have ignored him and proceeded with a lawyer. But my anger had subsided enough to grant his last request. All right. I agreed and waited for further contact from Ryan. However, a month and a half later, Ryan contacted me with unexpected news. "Is it true you moved?" Indeed, I had moved to a new house. A high-rise condo worth $100 million. I felt bad always relying on my parents. So when I saw a property that perfectly matched my tastes and lifestyle, I didn't hesitate. Naturally, I hadn't told Ryan. Confused by his knowledge of my move, I froze. "What? How do you know that?" "Well, out with it." After pressing him, Ryan finally confessed a few seconds later. "I hired a private investigator." "A private investigator?" My voice echoed in the still sparsely furnished mansion. "I thought if you were cheating, I could claim alimony. So, I figured why not have you investigated." "Cheating? What were you thinking? If anyone should be receiving alimony, it's me. I have no obligation to pay you alimony." And why did you move to such a huge house? You're supposed to be broke. Why does it matter to you? What I do is my business. As I declared my independence, the other side of the phone suddenly became noisy. Prepared for anything. I was surprised when the voice that came through next wasn't Ryan's. Why hasn't the money for Dad's hospital bills been transferred yet? If Dad can't stay in the hospital because of this, what will you do? I'm getting a divorce. We're not related anymore, right? How can you say we're not related? You've said it yourself many times that it's your fault Dad is in the hospital. Can you not make such baseless accusations? It's really annoying. I said, a stark contrast from my previous timid self. I wanted them to understand that, so I spoke without holding back. My mother-in-law seemed slightly taken aback by my new demeanor but quickly tried to steer the conversation her way. Oh, acting all high and mighty, are we? Just so you know, I'm aware of where you live. I could come over and have a talk if necessary. Oh, planning on visiting? That's fine. It's not like it's a secret. Continuing the conversation over the phone seemed pointless. I boldly decided to invite Ryan and my mother-in-law to my house. You want to talk face to face, right? When should we do it? My invitation apparently caught my mother-in-law off guard. However, she quickly accepted it, perhaps seeing it as an opportunity, and started discussing her and Ryan's schedule with enthusiasm. A week later, Ryan and my mother-in-law arrived at my house. They were visibly astonished by the unfamiliar furnishings and amenities. Their expressions were comically surprised. Please, have a seat here. I directed them to the new sofa I had purchased and started the conversation. So, what's so important that you had to come over to talk about? Well, about your father's hospital bills. How are you going to handle it? Living in such a house is infuriating. And how could you afford a place like this? Are you seeing someone else besides Ryan? Throwing all that at me at once is a bit much, don't you think? Especially since the private investigator confirmed I wasn't cheating. My mother-in-law was visibly agitated. The old me would have been scared, but now I had nothing to fear. Firstly, about the house. I've been trading Forex. Forex? I didn't know about that. I had been doing Forex trading before marrying Ryan. It wasn't particularly profitable at first, so I didn't talk about it much. However, as I got better, I started making significant profits. By then, our relationship had soured, and I didn't feel like sharing. I was afraid he would take all my earnings. So, you've been using that money? Yes. I also used the profits from my Forex trading to pay for your father's hospital bills. It seemed like the best option considering our financial situation. But now that we're divorcing, I don't see why I should continue paying. You did all that behind my back. Originally, I was transferring money from your account to your mother's. And if you're making more than I am, there's no need for all this fuss, right? Considering Ryan's past comments, his panic was unwarranted. Who was it again that said our lifestyle was thanks to them? It sure doesn't sound like you were counting on my income. I never said that. What? Pretending you didn't? That's pretty lame. What? They both seemed lost. But there was no way I was going to wait for them to catch up. Seizing the moment to press my advantage, I spoke up again. But really, what's with the plague-bringer accusations? Knowing that such a person has been paying your father's hospital bills, doesn't that embarrass you? It seems like you're still hoping to get money out of me, which is just the lowest of the low. Childish, really. Or is it childish to be making these wild accusations in the first place? I didn't know about your financial situation. Even so, it's odd. To question me, a supposed plague-bringer and parasite, about your father's hospital bills. Shouldn't you be discussing this with Ryan? Ryan said he didn't know. With that, my mother-in-law turned to Ryan. Her gaze suggesting she thought herself blameless. Me? Do you even realize your father's been hospitalized? Why are you not aware? You leave everything to me, and when something goes wrong, it's all my fault. Unbelievable. Why did I ever marry someone like you? After throwing their words back at them, Ryan and my mother-in-law turned their faces away from me. Is there anything else you want to talk about? If not, I think we're done here. Wait! They had nothing more to say. So I was about to end the conversation. I don't want a divorce even now. Please, reconsider. Me too, please rethink this. It was clear their reluctance to divorce wasn't because they cared about me, but because they were eyeing my money. It's quite refreshing, but this is not the time to be impressed. Enough. I've been telling you I want a divorce. It's not me you're looking at, but my money. It disgusts me. Here's the divorce paper, sign it already. I have plenty of spares, so tearing it up like you always do is pointless. I won't ask for alimony, but if you push me further, I'll reconsider. And if you come to this house again, I'll call the police. Got it? With anger fueling my words, I thrust the divorce papers at Ryan. It seemed he finally understood that my feelings wouldn't change. After signing the divorce papers, Ryan and his mother left the house. Good riddance. Feeling relieved and vindicated, I held the completed divorce papers, feeling the weight of the ordeal lift off my shoulders. Following that, I filed the papers. And the divorce was finalized. In the days following the divorce, Ryan sent numerous messages complaining about his fight with his mother, his inability to pay for his father's hospital expenses, and more. Of course, I didn't bother responding. He mentioned that life was getting tough, but that was no concern of mine. Similar messages came from his father and mother, which were just as annoying. His father even tried to elicit sympathy by detailing his health woes. But I hadn't visited him, so I couldn't verify any of it. The most I could do was guess that maybe his condition wasn't as bad as he made it out to be. I answered a call from Ryan once, where he only talked about money. Hey, you're making money, right? Can't you spare some? All you ever talk about is money. There's no way I'm helping you now. You can struggle for all I care. With that, I hung up and decided to ignore any further contact from Ryan and his parents. Thankfully, a month after the divorce was finalized, the calls and messages stopped coming. It's been a year since the divorce. I live a comfortable life on my own, though the vastness of the mansion still feels unfamiliar. And while I have no plans to remarry, living alone does get lonely sometimes. So, I decided to share my life with 2 cats. Now, I enjoy a happy life with my feline companions. My job and forex trading are going well, and I often think about how good it was to get divorced. Waking up to a normal day, I wonder what I'll do and what I'll eat. As I plan my day and start preparing the cats' breakfast, I'm reminded of the peaceful life I've built for myself.